Hello, kaiju lovers. First and foremost, specifically MIFV Max members on Patreon, as well as heroes of the internet and the listeners with attitude. Got to get the whole trifecta covered here.
Mm-hmm.
So, welcome to a special little bonus episode that's mildly impromptu, but I think it's relevant to your interests and something that is extremely timely. Joining me today is James Santana, a comic book fan, a comic shop owner, and most importantly for this stream, the founder of TokUSA Studios. How's it going, James?
Hey, everything's doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, this is exciting. So the big reason that I'm bringing you on, why I say this is timely, and for those who have been, for actually all of the listeners, if you're listening to Henshin Men or to the Power Trip, you saw an ad kind of randomly pop up in the feed. If you've been listening to the last couple episodes of the Monster Island Film Vault, namely 89 and 90, which was GXK and Reptilian, when we got to like this little ad break section that I have for there, you heard an ad play for this, but we're going to be talking about the world of Nebulon. I'm going to bring up the cover here in a moment, but this is a comic that you are kickstarting.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Well, the Nebulon is a tokusatsu inspired comic book that I've been working on with my co-writer Hunter Van Leer for the better part of like 2 years. This book includes a bunch of fun
Yep,
stuff.
there you
It's a
go. Oh, let me see if
There
I
we
can
go.
zoom in.
Awesome. So the book is going to be 30 pages, or 35 pages of content. That's the poster for the retailer level. It's also the cover of the book, which showcases our primary three heroes: Masra, the girl with the hemochroma, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
eyes,
Yeah, she's
at the top.
bi-eyed.
Yes. In the bottom, you have Kaiju Man slash Ryuji. And in the center, we have Nebulon, our Knight of Justice, our focal hero and flagship hero of Toku USA.
Mm-hmm. And in case none of you have figured it out, they are all inspired by. I wish this could be a little bit bigger, but this is what I deal with Google Images. It's
Yeah,
not the
I
easiest
know.
thing to manage, but the oh whoa, I can just use the mouse and do this. Oh, ooh, look at that.
Learning new
Ooh,
things every day.
ooh. Right at you. Oh, okay, I'm having too much fun zooming in and out. And for those who are listening to the audio version of this, you're just like, why is Nate making weird noises? Well, watch the video version, you'll understand. But
Exactly.
but yeah. So basically, if I understand this correctly, so obviously Nebulon is very Sentai and Rider inspired. Kaiju
Yes, he
Man,
is.
obviously inspired by Kaiju. And
Yes.
Masura is something of a magical girl, correct?
She's a mix between Mothra and Sailor Moon.
Sailor Moon. Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I know a bit about that, which we may talk
Yeah.
about a little bit in this. That
Yes.
is also relevant to the to Tokyo USA. But
Yeah.
before we get any further, and I've got a few more images that I'll showcase here in a few seconds. But first, I would like you to tell us who is James Santana. I know it's a very existential question, but for those who
I
don't know
know.
you, who are you?
All right. Well, I am James Santana. I am from Long Island, New York. For those who do not know what Long Island is, we are the little island off of Manhattan. I am from Suffolk County. I run and manage Android's Amazing Comics in Sayville, New York. It's a comic shop that I was a customer of for years prior to being hired. I quit my job, my full time job at the time, and became a grunt there, and then worked myself up to manager. Outside of that, I am a dad. I am a other podcaster. I run a podcast called Andrew's Amazing Podcast with my co-writer Hunter Van Leer. It's a
Mhm.
bi-weekly podcast where me and Hunter explore all things comic book related in news, reviews, and all the fun stuff that comes along with comic books bi-weekly. I think the last book episode we covered was Invincible Season 2. That is on all the fun stuff. And I'm a
Mhm.
dad and a
Mhm.
husband and a massive comic book geek, a self self-described comic book historian. Yeah, that's me in a
Yeah,
nutshell, little nerdy nutshell.
yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
tokusatsu
yeah.
boy, and yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So you really do kind of run the gamut, run the
Yeah,
gamut
I
here.
I try. Yeah, running the shop is been I've been there for almost 10 years, 9 years come
Wow,
I think
and that
9 years was December.
yeah, and that is no easy feat because trust me, as someone who has frequented comic shops for a massive chunk of his life and love them and was blessed to grow up in an area where most of the small cities around me had at least one comic shop. They managed to survive the 90s and the tumult with the 90s when a bunch of shops closed down, and then
Yeah,
and then the ones most of the ones that I frequent, they managed to survive 2020 as well because that killed a bunch of them as well. So
yeah.
we have we have some very what's the word I'm looking for? Resilient. That's why we have some very resilient comic
Yes.
shops around here.
Yes.
So the fact that you've been able to keep it going, and that's like I said, that is no easy feat. And I will admit there is a part of me that's kind of like running a comic shop for a lot of us would be kind of a dream job.
Yeah, that's kind of what happened. So, like, I was a customer. So, how it worked out was, Amazing Comics had been around since the '80s in Sayville. At the time, I was going to the original owner as a customer, Bob Nastasi, who was the original owner. Um, I would kinda do, like, run through the summer, every week I would go down there and then stop around October 'cause I would go to Comic-Con and the holidays would happen, I know I was getting comics for Christmas. And then one day, my boss, Anthony, was there. I was like, "Who's this dude?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm the new owner." He bought the store from Bob and moved it down the block, like, not even like 20 feet to a bigger store. I got became super good friends with him, and I was in there every week where I was still at my full-time job. And one day I had walked off my other job. I had put my 2 weeks in, and I was like, I had already been there like as a part-time like Saturday guy, like just like kind of like doing BS stuff there. And
Mhm.
I was like, "Hey, by the way, I'm quitting my other job. Do you want full-time help?" And I was picking up my girlfriend. He goes, "Oh, yeah, I'll talk to you later." I was picking up my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and my
I
friend
was gonna
Justin. We were going
ask.
out to get sushi. Yeah, I mean, I've been with my wife since I was 17. I am now 35.
Dang.
Um,
Woo!
yeah, we've known each other for a very, very, very long time. Yeah, so we got in the car and I picked her up from her house, and I got a text from Anthony, and he was like, "Can you come in tomorrow and start?" I'm like, "Absolutely." And we went out for sushi to celebrate, and I came home, and now I've been there almost 10 years. I worked my way up from part-time to grunt to manager and to like kind of like my boss's right-hand man. I'm there pretty much all the time. And yeah, I'm the comic book guy. I am the comic book guy. That's what it is.
No.
I love it. That's my thing.
Worst comic ever.
Oh my god. We have a little figure. We have a little Lego figure in the office that is the comic book guy. I'm like, that's me every time. Every time, that's me.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so that's your, obviously you've been a comic book fan since you were a little kid. That's why you were going to the shop all the time,
As
why
you
you run the shop
tell
and everything.
behind me.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I've got several long boxes over there full of issues and and graphic novels, a lot of which I still haven't read yet. I've been stockpiling them, and then
Fair.
I frequently get stuff at the libraries and all that. So I know what you're talking about. But the thing that's going to be most pertinent to our discussion here, besides your love of comic books and American superheroes, is what's your history with tokusatsu?
Okay, so, um, yeah, so I am a Toku fanboy. My love for Tokusatsu actually, so I tell everyone it's Power Rangers. That's kind of like my normal, like here I tell everyone it's Power Rangers type of thing. Um, but actually, I was talking to like customers and like my friends and like friends outside and stuff, and I was like, I think it really started with Godzilla, and I didn't kind of piecing together until like after a couple of like of interviews and like talking and like think really deep diving into like my lore, my own backstory, which is funny. Um, my first experience with Tokusatsu is Godzilla. My love of Tokusatsu comes from Power Rangers because being a nice 90s boy myself, I got to grow up with X-Men the animated series, and then
Mm,
Power Rangers was on right after it, and I loved it. I'm a big like it was the perfect it was the golden age of like fandom to get into things, and my like Power Rangers was the gateway drug for me. Like I
mm,
knew of Godzilla. I had watched the films, you know, growing up here and there. It was cool. He was a giant dinosaur who shot atomic breath. I'm like, awesome. But I grew up with Power Rangers, and Power Rangers was the start of my love of Tokusatsu, really in the long form of it. Um, it had everything. Like I was like, oh God, we talked about this at work. I forgot how old I was when Power Rangers exactly came out. I think I was like 4 or 5
I
when
was gonna
Power Rangers came out in
say
90.
it was 1993, so just do the
Oh,
math.
93, yeah, so like 80, 89, 90,
Because if
yeah,
you're
I was like
35
I
now,
was 5.
then
I
89.
was 5, yeah, I was 88. Actually, I was the back end of
Yeah.
88. So
So
I
you're
was
about
technically
about 5.
5 when it came
Yeah.
out, and, my mom let me watch it, so that's on her. Um, and she bought me all the toys, and so I'm a twin, and so growing
Oh,
up,
I don't
we
think
got
I
to
knew
watch.
that. What's your twin brother? Is it a
Yes,
twin brother?
twin brother, yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
what's his name?
Michael. He also
Michael,
writes
James
stuff.
and Michael. Okay.
Yes, he is a novelist, actually. He
Oh,
started
oh,
writing before I started
really?
writing comics. Yes.
Really? I'm a novelist as
He has
well, so,
got
I can connect with both of
yes.
you.
Yes, he's been doing novels, for a while now. I think he's up to number 4 in one. He's been doing a bunch for a long time. Now he got into the writing gig before I did. And he does a Gunpla building YouTube page, where he breaks down and builds Gunpla and builds custom ones. It's really fun. He's awesome. He builds me models when I'm like, I don't have time to build models with a 2-year-old running around and she's going to eat pieces. So he builds my models for me and then gives them to me.
Yeah,
So it's really awesome. But yeah,
yeah.
so growing up, me and him were always like, so we watched X-Men together. So he was Wolverine, I was Cyclops. Growing up, watching Power Rangers, he was Tommy, I was the Red Ranger, I was Jason. So yeah, we've been having that dichotomy growing up. It was great. We shared toys, so
Mhm.
yeah, Power Rangers is my tokusatsu. And then because I grew up in the 90s, I got to watch oh my god, my Godzilla, sorry. Um we watched Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad on TNT.
Oh,
We
yeah.
we
Yeah,
watched
I
we
was a
watched
massive fa I was a massive fan of that as a kid.
it's so good. Rewatch it. It's on Tubi. Rewatch it. We
Wait,
watched
Cyber Squad or Gridman?
sorry, Gridman technically is on there. But the one
Yeah.
thing about Cyber Squad was that they adapted a lot of the storylines from Gridman directly into the show. That's why now, if you watch Triple S Gridman, the anime, it's closely more based on the Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad show than it is on Gridman. It's weird.
Mhm.
I know you talked about this on your show, so I know. um, I got to watch Tattooed Teenagers from Beverly Hills on TNT. I got to watch all the fun Godzilla stuff. I watched Godzilla, the Fox movie. So I got inundated with a lot of tokusatsu growing up. And yeah, I got lucky. I got very, very lucky to be in the peak golden age of like weird American adaptations of tokusatsu and the influx of anime and all that stuff in the United States at the time. I got very lucky and I clung to it. I got I stayed. I never did the drop off where most Power Rangers fans kind of like go through space and then drop off after space. I stayed on. In fact, like Magna Defender is my favorite Ranger. Um it's kind of what inspired what Nebulon looks like.
Oh, yeah,
You
actually, now that I
like,
think about it, I'm gonna well,
see?
keep talking, I'm gonna bring up one of my other not my, one of your other Nebulon images, and if my mouse will
Yeah.
cooperate. There we go. Alright.
Yeah. Yeah, so I kept watching and even when like our friends, it was like I went to school and middle school and high school, I still was watching Power Rangers. Um, Even so much so when the final episode aired and like my friends were down for a break, we all watched RPM together because for two things. RPM aired on December 26th, which was
Mhm.
my actual birthday, and
Yeah,
it was
I
supposed to be the
definitely see it
final.
now. I see it now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, when you pull it up, Nebulon's based on Magna the Defender.
Mhm,
I always like the night motif. I'm a big fan of King Arthur mythology and folklore, and I
mhm,
wanted to put that a lot into designing Nebulon.
mhm.
Yeah, and like me and my friends wrote a Power Rangers fan fiction through high school into college, so much so that every summer we would get together at my house and sit there and do a big weekend summit for and when I say weekend summit, they would stay at my house for 4 days and we bring out a whiteboard and we pitch ideas to each other like it was an official DC or Marvel like pitch meeting.
Ah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
like I
so,
have like
but you were saying something about, watching RPM. I cut you off there a little bit, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, so, like, when RPM ended, that was supposed to be the ending of Power Rangers originally. Like, that was the ending of Power Rangers, before the Neo Saban era started and before Saban had officially bought it from Disney back. And we all got together. It was the weekend of my birthday. I mean, my brother's birthday, and my friends came down, and we sat in my house on a Saturday morning before I had to go to work, and we all, like, cracked like, "Alright, cool. We'll stay up. We'll do this." We were gonna watch it before I went to work, and that didn't happen. We were going to. I'm like, "No, I have to be work early." So then what we did was at night we watched it. We recorded on DVR, sat all in my bedroom. Even though we could have watched it in the living room, we sat in my bedroom. We all grabbed beers. We sat there like adults and watched the finale. And we're like, "All right." And we're like, "This is it. This is it. This is the end of Power Rangers." And all right, guess we're going to a bar after this, right? Because this is all we can do and hang out and drown our sorrows. We like, I happy
Right?
birthday to us, I guess.
Yeah, right?
Um,
I will admit, more than probably any other season of Power Rangers, with honestly only a few minor tweaks, you could have made RPM for grown-ups.
oh my god, yeah. Oh yeah.
I adore
Let's
RPM.
go.
I
Let's
adore
go. It's so
RPM
good.
so much. So much.
Let's go. I love it.
It is perilously close to topping In Space, which is like barely inching out for me, but like RPM is oh man, it's high on my
It's
list. It's
it's so good.
when Michael and I did our tier list as part of one of our big finale episodes. I think it was for season 1 of the Power Trip, and I only have 5 things in the top on the top tier. And it was almost just 4, but I got talked into throwing Lost Galaxy on there, but barely. But RPM was one of them, and for me, it was the best thing in the Disney era. And I would argue until Once and Always, it was the last time we had any S tier Power Rangers on screen, whether that be the
I
small
agree.
or the big screen.
No, I agree. I definitely agree with
And
that. Like,
and let me
yeah.
tell you, going from RPM, which even though it kind of pulled 1 or 2 punches in the finale, it was a very intense show. Took a lot of big
Oh yeah.
risks. And then I went to Samurai and saw the 2 worst episodes of the entire franchise. Now, I will argue Samurai is not the worst show overall. It almost was, but those first 2 that two-part premiere is the 2 worst episodes of Power Rangers ever produced. I hated every second of it.
I it's funny because like, as you bring up Samurai, I remember hanging out with my brother-in-law. At the time, he was friends of mine. He was a friend of mine. We would come over on Saturdays, and we would watch it. Like, "Alright, cool. We'll watch RPM we'll watch Samurai," and I'm like, "Alright." So my brother had already watched a lot of Sentai. Like, as much as, like, I'm a Toku guy, my brother's a bigger Toku guy than I am. Like, he watches everything. not in the most legal sense of things, and
I mean,
you know what I
hey,
mean?
hey, hey, hey,
And
hey, hey, Discotech just announced Mobile Cop Japan is being released by them, which is exciting.
I just saw, and yeah, exactly. So he's been watching like if he's a big Kamen guy, like we've had arguments about Kamen and Sentai stuff, so much so that we do not talk afterwards. Like it's a thing. Um,
That's kind of like me and Michael after some of our recordings. We get
yeah,
into
I
the
can
weirdest
imagine.
fights.
So
I will never understand why one of our biggest points of contention in the entire run of the Power Trip was which of these is marginally worse, Megaforce or Samurai?
at that point, it's like whatever. Like you're splitting hairs.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we get together and we'd watch it, and then like my brother would like 'cause I wasn't watching Sentai. My brother was watching Sentai, and then I would watch the Power Rangers seasons, and we get together and we would hang out and watch it. But yeah, like man, Samurai wasn't great. But yeah, I I always watch Power Rangers. It's so much so like I'm watching it with my daughter now. And it's a great experience. I remember like when once like Cosmic Fury was on and I was watching it and my wife was like, "Are you okay?" I'm sitting on the floor of my living room, like just hanging out, watching it on the TV, and she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "This is the final episode. Do you not understand? Like this is the final episode." And, yeah, it's like it's crazy. Now I watch it with my daughter. She's a big Power Ranger. Like, she's 2.5, so she's like, "It's morphin' time." I'm like, "Yes, babe. It's morphin' time." And,
Parenting,
it's like
you're
Power
doing
Rangers.
it right.
Yes. And she's like, "Power Rangers." I'm like, "We'll watch Power Rangers later." Because what happened was so we're trying to set up her bedtime. I'm like, "Alright, so I'll watch something." I'm trying not to find stuff to watch where it's, like, too bright or too shiny to watch. So on Tubi, I've been watching, Zoo Ranger, and she loved the theme song. So I'm like, "Honey, it's Power Rangers, we'll watch it later." And because she's like, "Oh, dinosaurs." I'm like, "Yeah, it's dinosaurs." I'm like, "Alright, relax." And then she's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "It's Power Rangers." I'm like, "Okay, fine." And then now I started getting into regular Power Rangers, and now that's all she wants to watch is regular Power Rangers. That and Simpsons are, like, the 2 things she wants to watch with me. I'm like, "Okay, sure." We're watching Power Rangers and Simpsons and Sailor Moon. Those are the 3 things we watch because she has her own little Luna that she carries around with her. She's like, "Luna."
Aw.
I'm like, "Yeah, that's Luna."
Aw,
So,
my
yeah.
friend Bex will be so happy to hear that. Sailor Moon is one of her favorite things in the world. I'm assuming, it's the original or is it Crystal?
We're watching Crys I watch Crystal because I watch it with my wife because
Okay.
she never saw the final movie, and, yeah, so we watch Crystal all together as a family, and Sailor
Oh,
Moon
okay.
is, like, a big thing for my wife, because like, it's the joke between I have, like, a tuxedo mask thing, and my wife has, like, a Sailor Moon thing, so we joke about it, and, my daughter is like, "Oh, that's our Chibi Moon," and it's a thing, and then yeah,
That's cute.
it's great,
That's cute. Although I
and then,
I'm actually
you're
watching the original Sailor Moon. No, I will not turn in my man card because
no,
it's just all
God,
girl
no.
Power Rangers, guys. It's all girl
Yeah,
it's
it's
literally all girl Power Rangers. That's how it came
mhm,
about. The creator of Sailor Moon was making a manga called Codename Sailor V, and Toei got wind of it.
mhm,
It's like, "Hey, this is great. We want to make it into an anime, but can you make it a little more like Super Sentai?" And she said, "Well, I like
and we
Super
done.
Sentai, so why not?" And then she turned it into a team, eventually brought Sailor V or Sailor Venus joined the team
Yes.
later on. So it is a continuation of what she was originally doing. And, you know, so it's great. And the more I watched it, the more I'm like, it's got all the same tropes. It's all the same
It's
tropes
all
as
it
Sentai and
is,
Power
like
Rangers. Seriously, it is straight up that, which is why in the early 2000s, Toei, in its infinite wisdom, decided to make a tokusatsu show out of it. I watched the first few minutes of an episode and I'm like, this is, and I've watched clips here and there. I'm like, this is some of the weirdest crap I've ever seen.
no, I can attest it's very not yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
especially since they made creative decisions like, oh, we're gonna have actual Japanese girls play these characters. Obviously, they don't have, Usagi doesn't have blonde hair because Japanese people
No,
generally don't have blonde hair. Oh, are we just
no.
gonna dye her hair? No, she'll magically get a blonde wig when she transforms. Oh,
Look what we did in the United States.
uh, no, no, this was the Toku version of Sailor Moon.
Oh yeah, it was.
That
So
that was what they did. No, yeah,
I'm
you're
thinking
thinking
of
of
the
the live action one that got as far as a pilot.
yes, yes, the one that became half live action, half animated.
Oh, good
Yeah.
lord. That which just got
Uh,
leaked
uh,
onto the internet, and the
yep.
internet went nuts, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what
Oh, we
was
did.
this? What was this?" Anyway,
Good
we
times.
could go on for hours about that. Yeah, good time. So
Yeah, we could.
anyway, obviously obviously, tokusatsu and comic books and superheroes, they run in your blood. That's, just how it works.
Yes.
So, got a couple all these questions all kind of go together, but what
Yeah.
is Toku USA Studios? Why did you start it? How did it come about? All that fun stuff.
All right. So TokUSA Studios is a multimedia grouping that I and my co-writer Hunter Van Leer and co-partner created out of my love of tokusatsu. And so Koku USA Studios started as a one, we needed a brand when we wanted to write comic books. We had gotten a comic book picked up by a company. I won't say the company's name because a lot of things have happened between us getting picked up and now that I will not talk about here. But if you listen to a million
Well,
other interviews,
well,
I
just out of
kind of get
curiosity,
into it.
was it a smaller studio or one of the obviously not a DC
Small
or a
one,
Marvel
small one.
because you're
No,
not
no,
gonna
no,
get
no,
in
no,
there.
no, no, no. It's a small studio. Kind of got played around a little bit. Um, and um, it was a book about superheroes that we had pitched, got picked up.
Supergroup?
Around yeah, Supergroup. Yeah, Supergroup.
Hey,
And
I
I
did
had
my
gotten picked up
research.
by a thank you. So Supergroup had gotten picked up. It's a story about what happens if superhero like tropes like supporting cast like got together in a therapy session that they had gotten picked up. That book had gotten picked up by a publisher. I won't say the publisher's name here. Just not to like blow them up, but we got picked up by them for like a year. We were working on the book, throwing lots of money into this book to get made. And then all of a sudden, by issue 3, we were talking to them, and then we were getting ghosted. And we're like, hey, we're still putting money into this book. What's going on with the book? And when can we start kind of getting out to stores and all the other stuff? And they kind of ghosted us for a long time. And then, needless to say, there was a lot of back end dealings and wheelings and kind of and poor communication and kind of uh, unsavory business behavior happened. And now it's a kind of a free book that should be coming out. It's a we got the book back and it should be coming out maybe August. It got picked up somewhere else. But in that interim of doing a superhero book, I me and Hunter always kind of sit down and between phone calls and texts and doing the podcast, all podcasts together, we pitch ideas to each other, and that's kind of where Tokyo USA came from. Um, I had created Unknown Heroes, which is the first, which was an anthology book, which was kind of my way of making it easier for writers to get into the industry. After dealing and while dealing with everything they have with Supergroup, I created Unknown Heroes, which was like my way of giving back to writers, which going, hey, how about your 10 pages that you need for a pitch? How about you put it in this anthology? You get paid for it, and then you could pitch it out anywhere. So at least you make some money back instead of putting all this money into these 10 pages and it going nowhere and sitting in a shelf or a file and no one's going to read it. Um, it's a way to expose yourself to the a fan base and get your name out there. So when I created that, I created Nebulon at the same time as the story I was putting into Unknown Heroes, and we needed a brand name, I was like, "How about TokUSA?" It's not fully tokusatsu because tokusatsu is live action, and it's comic form because it's not in manga form. How about we just call it that? And that's how TokUSA Studios was born. And we wanted to be for tokusatsu it's for tokusatsu fans and comic book fans mixing it all together and going, hey, you can like both. You can like tokusatsu stuff and comic books and kind of fill that gap where there is like this small cross section of like people that go to comic shops every week to pick up Spider-Man, but then also go home and watch, Power Rangers or Kamen Rider on like Tubi or Ultraman on the Ultraman YouTube page, at night. And it's like there are fans that love this stuff that feel like manga's not enough because manga feels so distant from them because they're either too old to get into manga now or comic books feel so distant because comic books don't cater to that audience. And that's what I wanted to do was like, hey, I want to show that tokusatsu could be used in a comic book format, and it doesn't have to be a big thick manga in black and white that you may not want to pick up and enjoy because you don't know. Like I know this as a retailer, people need an issue 1 to see if they like a comic. It's easier to buy a comic at 4.99 or 3.99 than buying a $10 or a $12 book and go, "Well, I wasted $12 on a comic I don't like." And I want to be like, "Hey, this is my way to give back to the Toku community that I love so much." That's where Toku USA started from, and that's where Nebulon was birthed. We're like, this is our flagship hero, and I want to start the world up with a classic superhero crossover style thing where it's like, are they good? Are they bad? Team up stuff with Nebulon, and I pitched it to my co-writer Hunter. I was like, come up with a character, and he was like, how about this guy that turns into a giant kaiju guy? I'm like, perfect. And that's where Ryuji Kaiju Man came from, and those first 10 issues of World of Nebulon Friend of Foe was the birth of all of this.
Yeah, I'm give me a second here. I'm gonna look up a picture of Kaiju Man right now. There you go. Doing
Yes.
like the class I was almost gonna say Hulk pose, but it's not really Hulk, it's more like the classic Goku pose. Oh!
Yes. Yes. All this is done by my amazing artist Gaspar Flores, um, who actually
Although,
I found on Instagram.
he does go through a very Hulk-like transformation, as you can see in these side
Yes.
panels.
The one thing about this page that I always look back on, it doesn't give you scale, because he goes from a human size to a giant kaiju form, but the
Mhm.
joke has always been, like, he keeps his pants,
Just like the
because
Hulk.
that's just like that's exactly where it comes from. We're like, just like the Hulk, he keeps his pants.
It would get very weird otherwise.
Yeah. So yeah, he becomes this giant kaiju who's very inspired by Godzilla. Yeah,
Yeah, I keep
I
thinking
love I
the
actually love this.
Yeah, yeah. I was thinking that he's like Godzilla meets the Hulk, but I'm trying to remember there was you would probably remember this. I can't remember the guy's name, but there was a villain in The Tick that was like that. He was this it was
Yeah.
this office worker who who turned into a monster, and the Tick had to fight him, and then by the end of the episode they cured him and he went back to being human sized.
Yes. It's
I
the
can't
same thing
remember
they
his
did with
name.
American. I can't remember his name either because like, it's so they barely put that book out. Um, yeah, I haven't read it taken, like, forever. I know at the top of my head, I watched the show growing up also,
Mhm.
both the live action and the cartoon.
Oh,
I can't remember his name,
there
and
there are 2 live actions now, actually.
yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, I forgot the Amazon one.
The Amazon one, yeah. And like all the rest of them,
And
they got cut short.
exactly. Because Tick is such a very niche character. But yeah, it's the same thing. Like with Ryuji Kaiju Man, um, one, he has a very Silver Agey name, because we didn't think he would have a bigger supporting cast than just him by himself, uh, which just
I'm
happened to
just looking at
be
I just see
good.
you say that, and I see this, and I just want a voice bubble that says, "I am my supporting cast."
Yeah, he it's so funny because when Hunter pitched it to me, he was like, "How about a guy that becomes like a Godzilla character?" I was like, "Sure. How's that gonna work in the story we're telling?" He goes, "Well, he's gonna become big, and they have to fight like ships and stuff, or a giant monster." I'm like, "Okay, sure, sure,
It's based actually,
whatever."
there's I said that there's elements of the Hulk in here, but you could also say that there's a bit of Ultraman in here as well because, except instead of being a giant superhero, he is a kaiju. So he's a Henshin hero, a Kyodai hero who becomes a kaiju to fight other kaiju.
Yes, yes. And it's funny, like, as, like, from those, like, 10 pages, like, birth this entire universe, and, like, the 3 main, like, heroes of the universe are all very, like, tokusatsu represented, like, plays, and yeah, it was always meant I always wanted to TokUSA to be, like, a place where actual, like, toku creators can come and pitch ideas and get pages out and do fun stuff, and make comic books, because it's hard as an American audience to sell tokusatsu style comic books to non-toku fans because all they were saying is like, "Oh, it's just Power Rangers. It's just a broken down version of Power Rangers." I get
Yeah,
it. I
yeah,
get it.
or the big meme where everything gets described as Japanese Power Rangers,
Yeah,
including
and I'm
Super
like,
Sentai.
yeah. So I'm like, "No, no, no, it's more than that," and, I see things with Marvel acquiring Ultraman's rights. I see that with the Massiverse, over at Image. I see that with these smaller publishers kind of we're all kind of trying to do the same thing is to bring tokusatsu and these style of characters in these genres to the front and the forefront of comic books. Like to be fair, like tokusatsu is just a name of a genre, just like action is or superhero is a name of a genre. There's so much underneath that to go through, and that's kind of what I want to show off. I want to make and I want to prove that Tokyo USA is a tokusatsu American comics made by and for tokusatsu fans, you
Mhm.
know. And I don't want to lean into like the booby books of the independent era that we're in now. And I don't and that's what it is. Like I don't want to lean into that. I want to be like, hey, you can have like even edgy, dark stuff. You can have light, fun stuff. You can have all this stuff done through the lens of tokusatsu, in comic book form, even though it's pseudo tokusatsu because it's not live action, but
Yeah,
inspired by tokusatsu, and
yeah,
inspired by the stuff we grew up with and the stuff that we love, and at the end of the day, like for me as a personal goal, I've said this um before to like friends and customers that have asked me about why I really want to make comic books outside of being a comic book fan, because every comic book fan wants to write a comic book. Not everyone's Jim Shooter at 13 years old writing Legion
uh-huh.
superheroes. You know, the reality is like I tell my wife this, and I tell like some people this. The reality is like I didn't graduate college. I dropped out. And I want to prove to my daughter that hard work matters. You go
Mm,
out there, you work hard, you can still make your dreams happen. You don't need
mm.
a fancy degree, you don't need a ton of money to make things happen. If you work hard and you do and you're fair and you're honest and you do the right thing, you can make your dreams happen. And that's what Tokyo USA is. Tokyo USA is my dream project. It
Mm.
is Yes, I would love to write X-Men. I have a Booster Gold pitch ready to go. I have a Superman pitch ready to go. I have a study pitch ready to go. Of course, I have all that stuff. But the
I
reality is,
I know what you're
uh,
talking about. I know what you're talking about there. There was a point in my life where I fantasized about writing for DC, but most especially Marvel, and I had this whole scene in my head where I get myself, in the in the writers' room there, and they're like, "Okay, you love Captain America, so do you want to do the next like run of Captain America?" Like, no, I need to do Spider Man. Why? Because I'm fixing your mistake. It's called One More
yeah,
Day.
yeah,
'Cause-
yeah.
so I know what you mean.
Yeah, and that's like my thing. Like, if I don't make it to the big two, this is my dream project to be able to produce comics and help other writers get out there and help other artists get out there, and especially in a genre that's very, it's a global genre that people kind of like put aside and kind of poo poo and go like, oh well, it's foreign. I don't want to touch that, but like you do. You see it in the influence of every comic you read nowadays, whether it's Jorge Jimenez, doing Batman and or Nightwing, with Tom Taylor this week having Jujutsu Kaisen in there, as an Easter egg, or having Joshua Williamson and James Tinney and Jorge Jimenez doing Batman and being inspired by Final Fantasy to make their characters. There's a place for anime and manga and all that Japanese influence to be in our
Mhm,
modern comics. It's okay to say that it's fine, and I want to kind of be one of the forebearers of that to a modern audience.
mhm,
That's just kind of what I wanna do and show my
mhm,
little girl that, like, you can do this. You don't need $1,000,000 to make your dreams come true. You just need hard work and good
mhm.
ethics and kind of like an actual d and a an actual achievable dream. I'm not saying, like, I wanna be a
Yeah.
spaceman and be like, "Alright, yeah," I'm like, "No,
Oh.
that's more than just hard work and not a lot of money," you
Yeah,
know?
that one,
Uh,
that actually requires some degrees, and to
yeah,
do.
exactly, like, you have to do that. Um but like, and get out there and like, hey, yeah, is it hard work? Absolutely. Is it stressful? Yeah. Do I have more gray hairs than I should? 100%. You know, but get out there and do the work and take the bumps on the chin
Mhm,
and show people that tokusatsu is a thing that's here to stay.
mhm. You, sir, are my hero. Thank you
I
for
am.
setting such a wonderful example for your daughter, and I hope for a lot of other people to value hard work and determination and tenacity and just it's like all the toku shows that we watch, right?
Yeah.
Everyone chasing after their dreams and not giving it up, you know, unless they have to, I suppose, if you want to be realistic
Yeah.
about it. But some of us are a little too stubborn.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, there's certain characters that we know from various toku franchises that you have to, you
Mhm.
know. But,
Yeah, and
that's
anime
my
as
thing.
well. That's a big thing in anime is
Oh, yeah. That's a huge trope in anime.
Naruto starts off with a goal, and he spends hundreds of episodes attempting to achieve it.
Mhm.
Even in the filler, nobody
Absolutely.
likes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I did get
Trust me, I
started
know.
on Naruto, but I'm probably gonna skip the filler. It's
There's an actual watch order if there's a million of them that are out there online, and you can go, "Hey, here's the fillers, you skip this, go forward." I wanna go back and eventually watch it, but, like, I'm now watching Go Lose a Ranger on Disney Plus. I'm watching Kaiju
yes.
8 every, like, on,
Yes,
Crunchyroll, so I'm like,
I haven't started Kaiju number 8 yet, but I have watched Go Loser Ranger, and it gets more and more interesting as it goes, and it's one of those times where I'm like, "Might have to read the manga." 'Cause
I have the
it's
manga, like, I'm up
yeah.
to date with the manga, it's right behind me.
Yeah, that's
I'm
really
up to date
cool.
with the
But,
manga.
that's really cool. So, like I said, you're making this to kind of, to bridge the gap between the people who like, we'll say American style or Western style comic books and manga, because they're the same medium, just like you were saying tokusatsu is a genre. I prefer to think of tokusatsu as a medium. That's why it has such a broad
Yeah.
range of things you can do with it. It can be a disaster film, it can be a kaiju film, it can be superheroes, it can be a lot of different things. People tend to have weird narrow definitions of these things, but clearly the styles are very different. And yes, there are things in the United States that are certainly manga and anime inspired. I'm thinking back on like the when I'm thinking specifically the Ultimates launched in the early
Yeah.
2000s, and was it Mark Miller? Mark Millar? I think
Mark
was he the one
Millar.
who? Yeah, but, he actually said
Yes.
that he did take some inspiration from manga with that in terms of the pacing and the panel layout, things, so the influence, like you said, is definitely seeping in, and you can see plenty of Western comic influences on manga, even as early as the 90s, I can tell you, like I read the entire run of Rurouni Kenshin, and there were characters in it very obviously inspired by Western comic book characters to the point where I'm like, you know what? Marvel could sue you.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you look at like My Hero and like if you watch My Hero Academia, like the cut that we got here in the United States is different from the manga because like they have pictures of Batman, Spider-Man, and Superman homage in the manga because like yeah, in fact in the movie, one of the first movies is like he has a Silver Age and Golden Age suit, which is are things that we say here in the United States about comics and the different ages of comic books. You know, it's
Mhm.
just there is a bridge to be gapped, and I want to bridge that gap.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk
Mhm.
about the big thing that we're here to talk about. So that's your studio, that's your background. We need to talk about what you are actually kickstarting. The world
Yeah,
of Nebulon. As I don't know if you
yeah.
heard I actually tweaked the ad that I play for it. I added a bit of an echo when I say the
It
title in
looks
the
so
newest version.
it's so cool. I like almost cried when I first heard that first
I
ad because
I
I was on my way to work. And I was like, oh, I can play it through my radio. I can play it through my stereo,
mhm.
and I played it through my car stereo. And I was at a stop sign. I'm like, this is awesome. I never could imagine this ever happening, and it was so
Mhm.
awesome to hear, and again, thank you a million times over for that. Um, you captured everything I kinda wanted to say in, like, this cool little ad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't take all the credit for it because you and your partner sent me some ad copy. I just tweaked it a little bit because I'm like, yeah, there's some details that need to be added. So,
Yeah.
and then I recorded it and such. But this is a nice little thumbnail ad that you put together. I'm probably going to use this as the thumbnail for each of the
Cool.
episodes that goes out so that so people will be able to see that, but what the kind of stuff you get in it. And
Yes.
so I'll showcase some other images here for this, but what is World of Nebulon?
So World of Nebulon, this is we're classifying this as either you can call it a preview issue or a issue 0. Either one works for us or you. Um, this kind of showcases bits and pieces of the world as a whole. The art is all done by Gaspar Flores. You can follow him on Instagram at the Art of Gaff on Instagram. All the stories except for one are written by me and Hunter Van Leeuwen. There in this book, the current Kickstarter has 2 short stories, which is World of Nebulon, Friend or Foe, which is the original 10-page short story from Unknown Heroes Volume 1, which showcases Nebulon, our Knight of Justice, teaming up with Ryuji, the Kaiju Man, as they fight kaiju, maybe, but who is this mysterious giant kaiju that appears? That
Is
is
this what you're talking about?
the Friend or Foe is actually
Oh,
the other
friend or
one.
foe. Okay, let me go find that.
Yeah, the
Oh,
one where he's like
there
that
you
one,
go.
yeah. Yeah, Friend or Foe. Um, Originally it was just called World of Nebulon. We've now subtitled it Friend or Foe going forward. Because they don't this is the first time the two of them are meeting. It is a classic tokusatsu Henshin hero style team up. Think when they do the Kamen Rider versus Super Sentai movies or just the generalized crossover stuff. They can't tell if they're good guys or bad guys. It's a cool kind of meet up, team up. Harkens back to the Silver Age of comics
Mhm.
and the awesome times of tokusatsu crossovers. Uh,
Mm.
also
Yeah.
includes the sorry, it includes the short story, also Project K, which I think we renamed Project K Origins,
Oh, have
which
you?
is
Oh, here it is, here it is.
yeah, Project K, which is the soft prelude to the second series of our universe, Project K. Project K, this story actually showcases Ryuji coming spinning out of Friend of Foe, and we get a piece of the introduction of who Masura is in this book. But we get it all through the POV of Matt Rayner, a kind of down on his luck guy as he kind of survives within the world of Nebulon and what happens when this dude comes across two giant kaiju. And yeah, Project K is
Mhm.
also the sister series in our world. But I'll get into that in a second. In this Kickstarter, you also get 5 pages of Nebulon Night of Justice, which is our
Yep.
flagship book. It is
Yeah,
in this book is
when I saw this, I'm like, "This is a very Boom Studios Power Ranger cover right here."
yes, that is actually an homage to Gotse homage, who did the original Boom Studios helmet covers. It is meant to be that way on purpose. It's so you don't know i- if you don't buy this version of the book, you will find out later on who Nebulon is. But we all know
Mhm.
who he is at this point. Um, Nebulon Knight of Justice is a in this Kickstarter is 5 pages. Is actually it's not even the first 5 pages of the issue one. It is pages one, three, 4, and 5, and 6, I
Mm.
think. Um, it's the origin of it's the start of the origin of who Nebulon is.
Mhm.
And in this book, we have Masura, uh, also known as Project K Origins Masura. Um, that is actually written and drawn by Gaspar Flores himself. He created Masura on his own. Masura is a girl with a mysterious past and origin. She has no idea how technology works. She is kind of a bumbling, cute, awesome cool girl to hang out with, but she has a cool, mysterious past. There's a reason why she can fly, um, but she's not the same as Ryuji and Kaiju Man. I'll just leave it at that. Um, because Ryuji and Matt, as we'll see in Project K in the story, are very different style of kaiju giant henshin heroes than what Masura is. Um, this girl is traveling the world, especially in this series. This is, like I said, it's written and drawn by Gaspar Flores. It takes place technically before Project K. It is her journey of self discovery as she travels the world after waking up in the middle of the forest. And why does she have wings? And why can she do certain things that other people can't do? Yeah, that's her little cool
Mhm.
thing. But
Mhm.
in all,
I
it
do
will
have to
contain
I do have to ask really quick 'cause, this is
yes.
something I haven't heard you bring up in any of the podcasts where you've talked about the project. Was her name inspired by the Japanese name for Mothra?
Yes, it was.
They yeah, Mosura.
Slight spoiler. Yes. So for this podcast and then for this live stream, I will tell you guys something that I haven't spoken about on other shows yet.
Ooh,
All
exclusives.
all all the Project K members are homages to um other titans, if you want to use a legendary term, or
Mhm.
kaiju of the Godzilla franchise.
Cool.
Right now, we know that we've seen Ryuji is Godzilla, Masura is Mothra, and Matt is actually from the video game Rampage. He's inspired by the video game Rampage. Um,
Oh,
but we've seen
Ralph, the wolf.
yes, he's inspired by Ralph the Wolf from Rampage. There is 2 other characters that you will meet in the Project K book if you buy this book, which are inspired by Kong, and I cannot tell you the other one because that will be a big giveaway of who he is and his story arc going forward. But he is the leader of Project K. There's a reason why he's the leader. There are other kaiju in the world that are tied closer to Masura that are also inspired. I will just tell you who they're inspired by, but I will not tell you who they are yet. There's Rodan, Destroyer, and Biolante,
Ooh.
and they are, let's call them siblings to Masura right now. And
That
that's
is
only for this
intriguing.
podcast. I have not said anything else outside of this podcast and about those
Oh, man.
characters. Um, so this is exclusive to you guys.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. Masura will be released. The story of Masura will be released. The full issue 1 will be released later on this year, if not early next year. Depending on how scheduling works for Nebulon issue 1. Regardless, pass or fail for this Kickstarter, we will be releasing issue 1 of Nebula Knight of Justice and Masura Project K Origins Masura. Um, those will both be kickstarted first, and then on other sites later on. They haven't
Mhm.
been determined what sites they'll be on yet. But yeah, in this Kickstarter exactly, you will get those. Every every physical backer for this Kickstarter, because we reached one of our stretch goals early on, we'll receive a trading card exclusive to this campaign. Um, which will, the back of the card has been designed already. That's up there on the updates. We are not telling anyone who the character is until the campaign is over of the card and the design of the card yet. The front of the card yet, because we want to leave it as a surprise for everyone. Um, and once you get this card, there will be no more cards of that character ever released again. It will only, if you want a complete set, you will have to back every single Kickstarter going forward as a physical backer. Um yeah, so that's really cool. We kind of did that as a, hey, if you follow us from our journey from start to finish, you will have a full set of trading cards of our various characters of the universe.
That is exciting. That is exciting. Yeah. So I was gonna ask, what are some of the influences on this comic? You've gone over some of those, but I know specifically there for Nebulon, there are some American comic book
Yes.
influences on it that I would
Yes.
love to hear you talk about.
So specifically for Nebulon, there's one major one, which is Venom. Venom is a big influence on Nebulon. So, yes, it's inspired between, like, his looks inspired by the Magna Defender, the fact that it's 2 souls in one comes from Ultraman and also Yu-Gi-Oh! More so Yu-Gi-Oh! Before I thought of Ultraman when I came up with the concept. Um, I was like, "Oh, Yu-Gi-Oh!"
Does he suddenly go through puberty and get a really deep voice, and nobody pays
Uh,
any heed to this?
exactly. So
Yeah.
it's that, but
Hi,
like
I'm
Venom,
Yugi. I am Yu-Gi-Oh.
like, no, you're not. One of you can pay taxes. Um, But really, Venom was my big inspiration for this. Specifically the Donny Cates run of Venom. So when Donny Cates was writing Venom,
When was he
and so
writing it, by the way?
he was writing Venom. Let's say we're in 2024 now. He's been off the book since 20. I think he wrote it from 20 2018 to 2021, or shortly after
Okay.
2021.
Okay.
Um,
That's an era of Venom I'm not very familiar with. Was that when it went back to Brock, or was that one of
yes,
the other
yes,
hosts? Okay.
yes. No, it's
It's
Eddie
that because
Brock.
Venom
So there was a
because
run.
the Venom symbiote is he's a
Yeah.
cheater. He just jumps to different hosts constantly at this point. I've lost track.
Yeah. So it was a small run right before Donny Cates took over where they brought back Eddie Brock that they made him the lead, and then it went into Donny Cates' run.
Mhm.
Cates' run kind of reveals a, so when I would always read so Donny Cates' run gave a lot of substance to the symbiote besides just being a kind of a weapon and a kind of a tool in the book. It gave it a lot of its own personality. There's a big reveal. I don't want to spoil it for anyone that's also reading Venom or wants to read Venom. It's a cool twist that happens into it, but it gave a lot of nuance and authority to the symbiote as its own kind of character. And I read it, and when I would read it, I would always read it as a female in my head, going, "They're in a toxic relationship." Like,
Mm.
especially after the reveals are happened in the book of why at one point did Eddie become anti-Venom, and why does the Venom symbiote always want to go back to Eddie, even though it can go to anybody else, even sometimes people that are stronger than Eddie. Um, and
Yep,
I kind of wanted to lean in.
famously, the symbiote has bonded with the likes of Mac Gargan, aka the Scorpion, and for a
Mhm.
while, Flash Thompson of all people.
Yes, which is actually
And
one of
that
my
was
favorite runs of
Agent
that book.
Venom. Yeah,
Yeah, I love that run. Um, but
sorry.
yeah, like,
Continue.
no. But like all the points you bring up, like you went to Scorpion and you were bonded with Scorpion during Thunderbolts, who gave into your cannibalistic or your urges, and you were fine with that. You bonded with a better person in Flash Thompson, but why do you go back to Eddie every time? So in my head, I started reading it as an abusive relationship, and I was like, how do you do that? Like, how can you? I'm like, there's no story that kind of leans into that, and I wanted to lean into that with Nebulon as a two people bonded together, um, on a kind of like, "Hey, we got together because of this one thing that binds us. This one traumatic experience happened to both of us, and now we are bonded together." But that doesn't always make the best grounds of a relationship, and I want to explore that through Nebulon and through Jono and Mayette, as like they bond because of what will happen in Night of Justice, and we get a quick sneak peek in this Kickstarter of what kind of starts to bond them, and like, but that doesn't make the perfect friendship or perfect relationship. And we see that with Ultraman. Ultraman is bonded because he was shot. The original Ultraman is bonded because he was shot down from the sky, and he was forced to
Mhm.
bond with a human being because he was dying.
Yeah,
That's not
in fact, Ultraman blamed himself for Shin Hayata dying because he flew in and he crashed his ship because of it. And he's like, "Oh, it's my fault you're dying. I can save you, but that
right,
means you and I will be bonded together, and all that sort of stuff."
right, and like
It's in a weird way, it's kind of a Green Lantern-ish, like Hal Jordan Green Lantern-ish kind of a story.
yeah, and it's kind of like, how does a forced bonding or a basis of a relationship or a friendship or whatever you want to say on a traumatic experience really work well as a hero? Because they're both trying to be heroes in their own
Mhm.
sense, and by that they form this one hero. Um, and so Venom was a huge inspiration from that. I'm like, Eddie and the symbiote do not bond on the proper terms. Eddie is upset and angry at Peter Parker. The venomous symbiote is also angry at Peter Parker, but they never kind of lean into it. Yeah, they bond over their hatred of Peter Parker slash Spider-Man, but what happens going forward? You know,
Mhm.
eventually he becomes the lead protector and blah blah blah. The many years of the Venom story. But what happens if you lean into it? And I wanted to do that with Nebulon. And yeah, that's the big influence of Nebulon is
Mhm.
the Venom story.
Mhm. Mhm.
Outside of that, it's just kind of like heroes like Superman, and Jono as the wandering hero, almost very Hulk-like.
Yes, yeah,
The idea
the
always
Bill Bixby Hulk. Yeah. Do you
yes.
when you're writing it,
Um,
do you hear the piano theme just playing in your head? Do, 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 do.
right. I, uh, I always show my co-writer about, like, it being like, if this was weekly, it would be a Monster of the Week style story as he traveled from his home city to New York. Um and that would have been the series going forward, and you would have gotten more people, and you've gotten all this, but we're condensing it into a very different, quicker story, going forward because we don't have infinite money.
Yeah.
Excuse me, but yeah, no, like that's a lot of my inspirations, like that wandering, hard traveling hero, which they did in Green Lantern, Green Arrow, and the Venom story, which is like what happens when you are force spotted together with something or someone you really don't know
Mhm.
on not the best terms.
Mhm, mhm. And I know, so, we've talked a lot about the influences, both American, tokusatsu, Japanese
Mhm.
manga. We talked about who these comics are made for. We went over that, so people who love tokusatsu and also people who like American comic books but aren't sure about tokusatsu. So you're like, "Hey, we can give you something that can help bridge that gap." It's not exactly manga, but, it's not exactly an American comic book either, so it's this wonderful blending of the 2. So you've got a lot of tokusatsu and American comic book tropes. But I also and this is something I've heard you talk about, especially on your episode of your show where you and your partner went into this. We've talked been talking a lot about these characters, but your goal is to build your own shared comic book universe in the style of a DC or a Marvel or I'm trying to think of some other,
Like
the
early
Valiant
Image, yeah.
yeah, early Image, the Valiant comic book universe, like, that is your goal. You wanna make a new
Yes.
comic book universe.
Yes. So right now with this Kickstarter, you'll see, and especially specifically with this Kickstarter, you see three of our books that we have planned. Um, which is Nebulon and Justice, which is our flagship book. Project K, which is its sister series, and Monster, which is its spin out. We do have planned another book, which again I will review here as an exclusive, which will be Feather and Flame. Oh no, sorry, not Feather and Flame. That's
Ooh.
my friend's book. Sorry, I lied about the name. The name that's my friend's book that was on my last book thing we did together.
Oh,
It
okay.
is called or it's called Red and Green Flame. Sorry, Red and Green Flame.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say
And
Feather and
yeah,
Flame, it's an amazing title.
yeah,
But
that's
no,
my friend's
Red
book
and Green
actually.
Flame.
Red and Green Flame. They are based on kind of like Cowboy Bebop. They are thieves that
Ooh.
exist in our world, and they exist in the same world as Nebulon. They are thieves. They are gentlemen thieves that go out. They work for a thieves guild they get like missions from a thieves guild that exists in the world of Nebulon. You might meet them by issue 3 if we get to issue 3 of the world, and we have a cover done. That cover was done by Kath Lobo, who has done work for Marvel and for DC and for a bunch of books. She did the premiere cover for that book. They are thieves. They are a couple that go on heists together. It is a fun action comedy book. Um, yeah, that has planned. We have Masra, which
Mhm.
is spin out, Project K, Nebulon. We also do again. I will not spoil who this character is and where he comes from, but there is a book based on Kikaider and Gridman,
Mhm.
which is Cyberlon Knight, the Cybernetic Knight. He will premiere probably within 2 or 3 years of the
Mhm.
launch, because he is a way bigger character than people think. He is my Haikaider, in the universe, so much so that when he shows up, there is theme music that plays. Um,
Ooh. Yeah. I was just
there
saying because
is
I remember, you guys have really put some thought into you got all these characters, but you've also been putting some work into creating just the universes you're in because the you were talking
yes.
about like I know there's elements of there were aliens that came and they kind of took over, but then they just kind of hung out,
Yes.
and things like that. So
Yeah.
it's semi post apocalyptic, except it's more
Yes.
like
So
post invasion.
yes, so it is set so years ago, aliens invaded Earth, um, for a more of a purpose of manifest destiny. They believe the universe so you have the Galaxian Empire, which is the alien race. Tarex, the God Emperor, is taking over Earth. he has pretty much decided that the universe is the Galaxian Empire's place to rule, and every planet's theirs. They have taken over every planet. So, when they land on a planet, they kind of do a show of force. There's two things they use for force: is their Galaxian troops, which are the G, we call them G soldiers in the book,
Mhm.
or they're different names. People use different slang for them in the book, so we're so far along in the universe in it. They show up first, and if that doesn't work, they have bioweapons known as kaiju. They are grown animals that are used to wipe out territories in mass, um, using mass power, mass destruction, um, which sets up a lot of the universe. So the Galaxy came to Earth, they're like, hey, this planet has life on it. We're gonna take it over, make it part of our, you know, empire, and didn't realize there were things already here when they took it over, or they tried to take it over. And now we are set, I think, 60 years since invasion, and that's where we're at now. 60 or 70 years since the invasion. That's
Mhm.
where we open up our world. We are planning a store. Hopefully, get to do the story called Meet the Neighbors, which explains the origin of the world. Um, but yeah, we are 60 years post invasion, and kind of what happens. What happens now that aliens are here? What happens during a real alien invasion? And we will lose, or we might lose. And now Tarex has taken over the Earth and made it his crown, one of his crown jewels in his empire. There are people, humans, that have sided with him. There are parts of the country. We, to be fair, we primarily focus on the United States just because that's where we're from. We do have a world map that we have built that kind of showcases different places and different regions in the world, and what they do now, post invasion. But there is, like, the East Coast is this giant kind of tech metropolitan, like, mega place, very steampunky. Oh, sorry, very cyberpunky. The West Coast is in the water. Um, After a massive kaiju mech battle that happens in the early days of the war. And yeah, what happens 60 years, 70 years after, people have grown up. And that's where you meet Jono, who's a scavenger, and his brother Davis, who are scavengers living in the fictional city of Arizona Bay, kind of trying to survive day to
Mhm.
day.
Yeah,
And what bring
Arizona Bay because the ocean has crawled all the way to
all,
Arizona now.
yep. Yeah, that comes from that comes from 2 things that I like. One thing is from the song "Enema" by Tool,
Mhm.
and it come that and but before that, it comes from an actual old school sci-fi book. I can't remember the name for life of me, um, in which California, if it was to ever fall into the ocean, which would be, what would be the nearest landmass, which would be Arizona. Um, and that's kind of where we're at now in the world. It's really cool. We live in a dystopian post-apocalyptic world, but there's so many facets of that universe because not everything's just oh, it's ruins and everything. No, we're 60, 70 years post it. And the aliens have also, the people that are living here that have kind of accepted them as their rulers. That's kind of the earth we live in now. They
Mhm.
rule over everything. There's a kind of hierarchy. There are elites that are people that
Mhm.
work for them that are make tons of money. There are the scavengers like Jono and Davis. There are people that's making it by like Bell and Drake. And whatever Mastra is, wink wink,
Mhm.
nudge nudge, why
Oh, wink,
Mexico
wink,
kind
nudge,
of
nudge.
kind of has a thing, like you know, it really is kind of like a whole universe, a self-contained universe in itself. And yeah, I want to
Yeah,
make my own universe. Yeah.
yeah, it sounds really exciting, and I am happily a backer on
Thank you.
on this, and so I'm looking forward to, getting this comic in my hand. I do have a digital copy. You were kind enough to send me a review copy as a PDF, which
Yes.
hopefully I will be able to crank out a review for Kaiju United this week, and to help promote the Kickstarter, which, we'll
Thank you.
talk a little bit more about the Kickstarter here in a moment. And you've
Mhm.
kind of answered, one of my other questions that I was going to go over. Thank you, which is, what else can we expect from TokUSA? So you've promoted all that, dropped a few exclusives, and if you don't mind, the James, I will drop a little bit of one myself. You hinted at it on Giant Size Violence with Tommy Trembath, and so I will at least make the official announcement. I'm not going to go into details because it's still very much in the early stages. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I have, and this has been on social media, I have joined TokUSA as a writer, and I've given you guys a couple of pitches that you
Mhm.
that you have liked. One, it's funny we're talking about Masura because I too also have a magical girl
Mhm.
character that is heavily Mothra inspired. But if for those who listen to the Monster Island Film Vault, her name is Crystal Lady, or Jessica Shaw. That is her civilian name. The big joke is that her origin is came about because of a teleporter mishap with the fictionalized version of myself who is on the Monster Island Film Vault. So she's kind of a something of a twin sister for poor Nate, and I talked my actual real life sister Sarah into voicing the character on the podcast as a little bit of a joke. So very proud of that. So anytime I cover a movie that has Mothra in it, if she has some nemesis that show up and it becomes very Sailor Moon Toei-esque, with them showing up, and then there's a big exciting superhero battle going on. And I've had some people tell me that I should get her into a comic book. So I decided, why not? I'll pitch you guys. I had an idea for kind of a spin-off one shot that would technically be, in canon with the podcast, but it would just be like its own little thing. It's tentatively called Crystal Lady versus the Mothman, who will be the cryptid, the famous cryptid, who that'll be our villain of the week in that one. And I've got a basic idea for a story in it. I've never written a comic book before, so I thought doing a nice little one shot that would appeal not only to your audience but to my audience as well, would be a good place to start while I'm still kind of cutting my teeth on how to actually write a comic book, because I've never written a comic book before. I've read comic books since I was a wee lad, but I've never actually done it myself. So I've been studying up on how to actually write comic books. And you, James, have given me a couple of pointers. I will still probably be coming to you for pointers as we
I'm
get
always
started
here.
on this. Yeah, for sure. And I
Mhm.
appreciate that. And then the other one, which would be a little bit more of an ongoing series, although I may try to kind of plot it out a little bit just so I can get an idea how long it's going to go, because TokUSA, at least at the moment, is, it's a little studio. We're not, you're not a DC, a Marvel, or even like an Image or a Dark Horse, or or a
Yeah.
Boom Studios or whatever.
One day.
One day. I mean, I'm just saying, Boom Studios, if you're listening, I've got an Astronema spinoff series that I can pitch you guys. You know, I've done something kind of like what I would pitch you guys on the podcast, and people have told me it needs to be a comic book. I'm like, talk to me, Boom. I know you don't take stuff from unsolicited writers. You only take unsolicited artists. I don't know why, but I've got ideas. Anyway, so it is tentatively called Gemini. It is as you said on Giant Size Violence. It's inspired by Ultraman. It's not I wouldn't say it's a true Kyodai hero series, but it is definitely Ultraman inspired. The big idea that I got from this was when I started college. My dad, it's funny you brought up being a twin. I'm actually the son of a twin. My dad was one half of a set of identical twins. My uncle, unfortunately, died about 5 or so years ago. So, he's no longer with us. But so
No.
my dad, when I started college to be a writer, he had a dream one night where he said that it was like he was in this kind of James Bond style the storyline about where there was a guy who, unbeknownst to him, had a twin brother who was a super spy, and now he's getting confused for his brother. Now the spy's enemies are confusing him for his brother, and crazy things ensue from there. So I was sitting on that
Yeah,
as a potential idea, and then my friend Michael Hamilton and Danny DiManna and I were talking one time about what we thought might be the next Ultraman series, because this was when Tsuburaya was doing these remakes of the Tiga Dyna Gaia trilogy. And
Mhm.
Michael said, "Oh, I bet the next one will be called Gemini, and it'll be a remake of Gaia." Ended up not being true.
Oh.
But I latched onto that. It was such a good name, so I kind of latched onto that. And Gemini is, you know, based on the twins Romulus and Remus from Greek
Yeah.
mythology. They're also the mythological founders of the city of Rome, and it's one of the constellations. So that all those two ideas just kind of melded together. So if anyone here has seen Ultraman Ace famously had two hosts. It was a man and a woman. They ended up dropping the woman halfway through because for some odd reason people
Mhm.
complained about it, and then they got rid of her, and she turned out to be a moon princess. Because okay, that's how they wrote her out of the
I
show. She's
can't.
actually a moon princess.
Sure.
Sure, guys, but Ace is kind of nuts. But so my premise is that you have this very Ultraman style being who bonds with the two of them. It won't be revealed until later why he has to have two of them, specifically these twins. And the idea here was that the one of them is basically like a member of your science patrol sort of a team. So he's constantly running into danger to go fight whatever the threat of the week is, but his brother is a civilian, and they can only become Gemini, who's the Ultraman style hero, if they are together. They have to actually make physical contact in order to become the hero. So you have one guy who's constantly running toward danger and one guy who's either running from it or being kept away from it. So they have to find ways to get together to become the hero and then go fight the monster. So
It was so
that's
cool.
yeah.
It was so cool when you pitched the idea because we actually had an actual human phone call, which I know is weird in the modern
Yeah.
era to do. Um, but we pitched the idea, I was like, "This is actually really cool," and I'm like, "Yeah, of course I will love this on the TokUSA as well as, like, it's like, opening books."
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I just need to develop the idea a little bit more. I've got some characters in mind for some other like some supporting cast. I've got a lot of ideas for villains of the week and some main villains and I've told you what some of the big revelations are going to be that relate
Oh,
to
yeah.
some big ideas that are going to be part of this that I've just been toying with because they're such interesting just such interesting concepts for me. And well, like I said, I got to learn how to do this first. That's why I'm planning on starting with the Crystal Lady one shot, and then I'm gonna try to, plot out what this is going to look like, figure out how long it might take, well,
Right.
and go from there because that's a bigger project. I also need to find artists for both of these. I've talked with a couple of people who, around here and I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana, who might be interested in it, including a guy. I wish I could remember his name offhand, but it's a guy who I probably shouldn't say it just in case things don't work out. But it's a guy I met
Right.
at a small convention that I was tabling at here in Fort Wayne, who has worked for the big boys. He's worked for DC and Marvel and and other corners of the industry, and now publishes his own stuff. So I'm sure if I mentioned his name to you, James, you were like, "Oh yeah, I know that guy."
Yeah, exactly. Like,
So I'm
when yeah.
I'm really excited about this concept, and because it's a simple setup that allows for a lot of interesting storytelling,
Yeah.
possibilities, and
It
hopefully it doesn't
it
turn
does,
into too much of a gimmick.
and it does, and that's kind of like n and to be fair, I'll be very transparent with listeners and viewers that so I was a listener of Nate's before well before this was a thing.
Yes.
I listened to every episode of Henshin and Power Trip, except for one. The only thing I haven't listened to is Shin Kamen Rider 'cause I haven't watched the movie yet. Um,
It's on Amazon Prime now. You got no excuse.
I I do. I have a 2-year-old. That's my
I know,
excuse.
I know. Yeah.
That's my
Yeah,
actual excuse.
if I could remember your
But
daughter's name, if your daughter's name, that would just be like my joke with you. It's just like so when someone
so
says you have no excuse
my
to do this, you're like, I do. She's 2 years old.
no, my daughter's name is Veronica. Actually, my daughter's full name is Veronica Hope, and she's named after, despite what my wife says, her name she's named after Veronica from Archie Comics and Hope from X-Men, Cable's daughter as the Mutant Messiah.
Ah, mhm,
Um, and in Latin, her name means is she who brings victory and she who brings hope.
mhm.
Um, my wife likes the name because she's named after Saint Veronica. Uh, so I'm like, awesome. It all worked out, so I didn't have to have an argument with my wife about naming
Yeah,
our
yeah,
daughter.
yeah. But anyway, you were
Because
a listener.
yeah, so I was a listener forever. So much so it's my number one podcast on my Spotify for 2 years running. So not
That
the
just
one
makes me
I
happy.
actually, yeah, not the one I actually run. No, yours. Because it was great. It was like I would listen to your podcast going to and from work every morning. I'm like, all right, cool. I can listen to the episode going to work, sometimes at work. When I was supposed to. I'm like, cool. I can listen to it. Awesome. Um, so yeah, and then I was like, hey, you know what? I'm doing this thing, and I joke with my co-writer and co-founder Hunter about him jumping the gun too early and getting big ideas. I'm like, all right, you have to slow down a little bit and breathe and take it one step at a time. I was like, I know who I should hit up. So I hit up Nate on the Henshin Man like Twitter account or X account or whatever. I was like, hey, by the way, I have an idea. Hear me out. And that's where we started really talking. Besides me being an Uber fan. Um and yeah, I because I wanted, so full transparency, there are only 5 people that I actually invited to be at the ground level of TokUSA. Nate, Tommy, from Transcending Comics and Giant Size Violence podcast. Nick, who's actually a part of our team, which was he's a big tokusatsu artist and like influencer on X. Um, my friend Steve, not my friend, my a fellow toku writer Steve Corbin, who wrote Toku Neon, and also wrote Feather and Flame. Those were the initial invites for Toku USA, because they're the only people I can trust to handle tokusatsu stuff that know it, that actually know it and love the genre, and we want to build it with a group. And besides my artist Gasper, who was actually the second person who was part of the team, um, who's a mega Godzilla fan, who we wanted to be part of this initial launch of stuff, and everyone's story is their own. Nothing's interconnected until we do a thing crossover, like Secret War style. One
We could
day.
do a multiverse. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, there is a multiverse. There exists a multiverse. I've already talked it out with Hunter. We already have plans. Um, that each one as a thing in the multiverse is movie like it's a thing. Um, but we wanted to be, and going back to the earlier question of when Nate presented like what is TokyoSay, it's for fans by fans. And I couldn't think of someone else better than Nate to be on there
No.
with me in the earlier days of starting this, and hopefully this becomes a thing. I always joke with Hunter about making like a multimedia empire. I'm like, well, I have podcasts and YouTube stuff and T-shirts. Um, a lot of times it comes to me at like midnight, and I'm like, dude, answer your phone. He's like, I'm sleeping. I don't care. um,
Drink a Red Bull
but
and
like,
talk to me now.
and that's what happens. We'll like record all podcasts and be up till like 2:30. And my wife's like, why are you coming to bed now? I'm like, I just got off the phone. I'm so tired. um, but yeah, like that's what this is. Like for me, and like I wanted Nate, and like I was like, I wanted to be people that love tokusatsu and show and because it's easy to be like, I'm a Toku fan. Yeah, sure. Like every Power Ranger fan is classified as Toku fan. Just like comic books. Like I'm an X-Men fan, but are you like a beginner that like is just learning the stuff, or have you been in it for a long time? And that's not me gatekeeping. It's just like this is more of a longevity thing. Like, hey, I like X-Men, but I've only read the Krakoa stuff right now. You know, good. I want you to keep doing that. Keep doing that. Keep going. Keep loving Toku. Keep doing this. Get out there. Watch a Godzilla film. Watch Ultraman. Ultraman is so hard to watch sometimes. But get into Ultraman. You know, get into Kamen Rider. Watch Super Sentai. Watch Power Rangers. If your gateway drug's Power Rangers, that's what it is. You know, and I couldn't think of what I was joking because the initial thought of TokUSA was it's going to be me and Hunter and Gasper doing this one connected universe, and I was like, I don't like that. I don't like that. And he's like, why? I'm like, it's not me not liking the idea of us making our own universe. I'm like, I want other people to be involved. I want people to tell their stories. I want to give people the opportunity that other publishers may not be able to give or may not want to give, and be like, hey, you love Toku. Hey, come to us. We will help you. Whether it's us just training you how to write comics or helping you publish comics, we want to do that for you. And I was like, here's my wish list. I'm going to reach out to them. And yeah, Nate you were like one of my top list people. I was like, this is it. And Hunter was like,
Aw.
you messaged him? Like, yeah. What'd he say? Yes. I'm calling him the other day. I'm calling him in like a day. Like, we're going to pitch ideas. And that's why, and honestly, if you follow us on TokUSA underscore studios on X, we never made official announcements on who is on what creative teams and stuff like that because I wanted it to be very like in their own time, each creator.
Mhm.
Kind of, I don't want people to feel pressure. I kind of want
Mhm.
everyone kind of just to enjoy the ride and like, hey,
Mhm.
read this book we're putting out. And again, you may not like what me and Hunter write, but you may like what Gaff writes. And one day the we have already kind of planned out a Toku USA Studios one shot, which will be every issue one of every book we put out at that point.
Mm.
Um, to kind of you may not like my story, but you may like Nate's. You may
Mhm.
like Nick's. You may like Gaff's. You know, and that's kind of what it is. Like I want everyone kind of to get a flavor of new writers and to give people talent, showcase talent that may just be kind of underscored and kind of like under the rug because we like a thing that's not mainstream for American audiences. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, but yeah, Nate was like my first list, and I hit him up on X, and we had an actual human phone call. And I loved his idea from the get go.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very honored to hear that. 'Cause I didn't know that. I did not know that until just now, people, that I was on his short list. And
Yeah.
it's so very flattering. And it's one of the many reasons that I love podcasting. Okay, because few years ago, well, more than a few years ago now, here's some, interesting Nate lore for you. I tried to, I was struggling as a writer, so I thought, let's try be a little crazy, and I'll see what if I can become a YouTuber, get a little bit of attention doing that, and it never really went anywhere, and it kind of ran out of steam. And then I discovered the joys of podcasting, fell in love with the formatting, and well, not formatting, with the format, with the medium, and it has allowed me podcasting has allowed for so many more opportunities than I ever saw when I was trying to be a YouTuber. And meeting you, James, and doing this is is just one of them. And I am incredibly grateful for for this opportunity, and to stretch myself as as a writer and creator, and to check off one of those bucket list items for me, write a comic book. It's something I've wanted to do for years. And it's, I mean, I've got like ideas for days. I I tell people because they're like, "Do you ever have writer's block?" No, I have the opposite of writer's block. I have too many ideas.
Trust me, there's a I will tell you an exclusive here of what the actual next TokUSA project is
Oh, okay.
outside the world of Nebulon.
Mm,
There's a book, there is a short, not short story, there will be an OGN graphic novel coming out called Code Red.
mm.
Um, actually, the full title is Code Red Revenge. It's as if you take Power Rangers and you mix it with Kill Bill.
Oh, wow,
And
whoa.
uh,
That sounds
yes,
very intense.
originally it was called The Revenge, and then we changed it to Code Red Revenge. Um, yeah, I wanted to like it's an announcement I will only make here
Mm,
until it comes out later on. But that is the first non-Nebulon book we will be working on that me and Hunter will be working on.
mm.
Um, and yeah, I just want to showcase all the fun tokusatsu stuff, and that's one of them. And just like you're like, there's not enough there's not enough time in the world or money in the world for me to write all my ideas.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, it was to the
but
point where I basically had to write out like basically an itinerary. It's just like, okay, here's this, and this idea, and I want to get all of these done before I do this one. So it's, it's
exactly.
so like
But
I've kind of mapped out
although
what I want to do for like the next 10 years, and it's like take care of all the loose ends for all like the series and books that I've written now. Once that's all done, get started on a big new space opera. That's the
there you go,
kind of
exactly.
insanity that I plan out.
But I say that with the caveat that all these dreams, I want to make dreams happen. I
Mhm.
kind of one of my customers and a good friend of mine now has said to me, he goes, you can't help people up the ladder if you're on the ladder. You can't pick people up with you.
Mm,
I'm like, yeah, you can. And I was like, no, you can. Is it harder? Sure. Does it make more competition? Sure, but that's fine. You know, I want to help. If I fail, I'd rather help people upward. You know,
mm,
and I want, but that also is kind of like what this whole episode is about. Is like this Kickstarter and this kind of world doesn't exist without you guys and your support. You know, so as of recording, I think we're at 70
uh,
percent 70%. We're at
yeah,
70%
yeah. I was gonna
as
say,
of
hold that thought because we're kind of, we're going into, where can people learn more about you and support you, and I will bring
yes.
up your Kickstarter page right now. So just
Cool.
keep talking, keep talking.
Yeah. Um, this
There
kind of
you
goes
go.
on with you guys. There you go. Yeah, we are at 71% as of today, with 9 days
Mm-hmm.
left as recording. We end uh May 1st at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Um, we have one tier that's almost officially closed out, which is the um Nebulon combo pack, which includes the first volume
Oh,
of
this
Unknown
one,
Heroes. The
$40.
No, the bigger one. There's a $60 tier that we or $50 tier or a $45 tier. It's all the way at the bottom. Oh, well,
Oh,
no, not the retailer one. There
oh, okay.
should be there is a
This one?
tier that is the nope, that's a big mega physical one. There's still more
Right here.
down. Oh, it might
There
be
you
above
go.
that. There we go. Which is the Unknown Heroes and World of Nebulon combo. There's only one left of those, which includes the original trade in which Nebulon's first appearances, which is includes the Friend of Foe story. Plus, you get a copy of the World of Nebulon issue 0, and you get an exclusive trading card for this Kickstarter. All for
Mhm,
that for 45.
mhm,
There's only one left of that. But we have
mhm,
plenty of stuff left over. We have the as low as $5. You have the digital copy which will be delivered I think the day after or 2 days after the actual Kickstarter ends. We just gotta do some like digital formatting, which is the
mhm.
PDF for $5. That includes all the stories. Plus, it will have goodies in there that we haven't. talked about yet, which may include the world map or maybe some cool bio stuff. We have the Mega Digital Bundle, which includes the digital PDF plus all the posters, all the covers of every story as a digital wallpaper for your phone or for your or
Mhm.
your computer. We have the physical bundle for $10, which is, of course, the book itself. It gives you a copy of World of Nebulon issue 0. You have the mega physical bundle, which includes includes the actual book plus all the covers as actual posters that you can hang up in your house or do whatever with. It's up to you at that point. Um, and finally, we have the retailer tier. We have 5 of those left. One is kind of soft spoken for. But then we have 5 of those, which includes 25 copies of World of Nebulon and an exclusive poster to hang in your store that says World of Nebulon sold here, plus 25 copies of the trading card will also go to your store,
Mm,
so you give that to your customers or anyone that
mm,
buys a copy of the book.
mm.
Yeah, so those are the tiers.
Yeah.
If you decide
I'll
that you don't,
if I think about it this week, I'll try to stop at a couple of my at least one or two of my local shops because there's how many comic shops are in here in Fort Wayne? At least 4. So I could probably drop by one or two of them. Say, like,
awesome,
hey,
I will send you
would you guys be interested in jumping on board with this? A nice little indie
awesome. I
comic.
will send you a thing after show. It's like a QR code thing.
Yeah.
I will send you after show. Um,
Mhm.
but if you don't want to do a mega physical tier, you can also take all the posters as add-ons, if you would like. So if you just want like the helmet cover, for example, it's a poster. You can just buy it as a poster, as a print, or any of the covers. They are considered virgin covers. It's as you see right
Yep.
there.
Right here. Mhm.
Um, they're 8 by 11 virgin covers. Virgin all it means it's just textless. Um, we have not hit any of our stretch goals
Mhm.
monetarily wise, but we did hit our first stretch goal, which is a backer goal, which was the trading card. So every
Mhm.
physical backer will receive a trading card. That's the back of the card, which is the mix of the nebula space. We are hoping to give out little Nebby to everyone, if we reach a lot. Um, but it's a physical card that, again, like I said, will be exclusive only to this campaign. It will never be made again.
Mhm.
The If you buy a physical copy and you just want to kind of buy a poster, you can just go to the add-ons part of it. You can also at any point up until the end of the campaign adjust your um manage your backing. So if you just did the comic and didn't realize you can just buy one of the posters as an add-on, you can do that also at any time. Um, yeah. And so if you don't want to be like, oh yeah, I want just like the kaiju poster, I just want this one, I want the helmet cover. I have people that just want the helmet cover because they like it because they're Power Ranger fans and they know
Yeah, I
it's
was gonna
BMI.
say, yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I
so
don't
yeah,
blame them.
exactly. I have. It's
I
funny
mean,
enough.
I'm looking at this and being like, I kinda want one of those helmet covers. I mean,
Yeah, you can just go. You can manage your pledge on Kickstarter and just manage it. And you can add it as an add-on,
I was gonna
whatever
say,
you want.
well, we'll talk afterward, but yeah, you might get a little bit closer
Yes.
because I'm probably gonna jump at that poster.
But yeah, so you get that. All that's there. What else? Oh, you can also see the breakdown of my wonderful, wonderful starting team for TokUSA. It's myself, my co-writer, my fellow podcaster, my former co-worker who is now in a different state. Um, my friend Hunter Van Leerup, who is like a kid of mine. He's a good friend. He also is writing another book coming out later this year called The Trenches, so keep an eye out for that.
Mhm.
Which is a horror story based on The Thing and H.P. Lovecraft. There
Ooh.
is my there is my artist Gaspar Flores, who I found on Instagram. He is also based in the same state as, funny enough, as everything that went on Small World. He's in the same state now as Hunter. We're there like 20 minutes from each other, which is funny. Gasper actually did art for me years ago, for my Power Rangers fan fiction. He did the cover of one of my stories, and made my characters come to life. And now he's my artist for my comic book.
Gotta love it.
And my wonderful, wonderful colorist CJ, who is actually the only person in New York with me. Um, he is a cool guy. He
I
is
didn't
super
realize he was the love child of Alpha and BoJack Horseman.
exactly. Him and Hunter have this like corresponding like nicknames. So it's like on their handles, it's Scruffy Moose Man, which is Hunter, and Mr. Baboon Man, which is CJ. Um, CJ's awesome to work with. CJ, it's funny because like we'll send him pages and we're like, all right, so what's this page look like? And he'll send it back to us, and then him and Gaff get into it about coloring. I'm like, I don't know how to color a comic book to save my life, so y'all can have fun with that. And it's awesome. It's funny between the two of them, and I couldn't ask for a better team to work with, to talk to, and bring all this stuff to life. Um, Gasper created Masra. Um, Matt was actually created by CJ and Hunter. Um, like it's not just me sitting there dictating, hey, this and this and this. Um, yeah. Oh, by the way, you could also see a cool video on there, which should be the ad that Nate made for us with the video
Oh,
that I
really? You
produced
switched
together.
it out? Because it
I
wasn't there
think I switched.
initially.
No, I think I switched it out. If you want to press
Oh,
play, if not,
well,
you
I
can
was gonna
always
say, we'll
pause it.
find out, yeah. I was gonna say, we'll find out. Let's try it. Nope, this is the original.
Oh no, it's the original one. I did change it on all other social media, which I should just change it here. I don't know why I never changed it.
I'll just let it play
Um,
for fun. That's a cool logo.
so that logo was actually made by. Oh wow, that's cool.
71%. Woo!
91. Let's go. Um, so that logo was made by Nick, who's also a member of TokUSA, who will be doing a book. I cannot tell you exactly what the book's going to be, but it is inspired by Power Rangers. It is called With Attitude, and that's all I can say right now.
I love it.
All I can say right now, he has life stuff going on. He just became a dad. So I was like, I definitely understand. We are going to be doing rollouts probably outside of the world of Nebulon starting next year. He also reinvented our logo. So right now, the only book that will have our old school logo will be this book. Everything going forward will be the new logo.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I am super excited about this. And like I said, this can't happen without you guys. And yeah, back if you can't back because of life and money reasons, just please share it on social media. We have
Yes,
9
please
days
do.
left to go. And without you guys, Tokyo USA can't exist. And even if this does fund and even if this was to make $1 million, this doesn't exist without you guys.
Mhm.
Between my creative teams on the book, the fans, it doesn't exist without you guys. Not I am humble enough to admit this does not exist without you guys. You guys are the lifeblood of Tokyo USA, not me. I am just a
Mhm.
guy that had too much time and had an idea and it was like, let's do this.
Mhm.
Um, you guys are what make Tokyo USA a lot, survive and thrive. And the reason why I do it. You guys are the reason why I do it. Every Toku fan is the reason why I actually do this project. My daughter is the reason why I do this project. My wife is the reason why I do this project. We exist as a small community in ourselves. It's not like, oh, hey, baseball. Like, no, we are Toku people.
Mhm.
You may not like Godzilla, but you may love Ultraman. You may not
Mhm.
like Kamen Rider, but you love Super Sentai. That's what Tokyo USA is all about. We have something for everybody in this brand, and that's kind of what it is. But at the end of the day, it's for you guys, and it's by you guys. We don't exist without you. And hopefully one day you can look back and be writing a book for Tokyo USA when I'm no longer in charge and someone else is in charge and be like, yeah, I got my start there, and you can pass that dream up and help someone else up the ladder.
Mhm. For sure. For sure.
So
So, you know, the we've already talked about the Kickstarter, but where can all the peoples follow you on the socials, maybe learn a little bit more about
Okay.
TokUSA, fun stuff like that, and we'll start wrapping up and then go to a Patreon exclusive section where you and I will
Yes.
do a little bit of comic talk while I try to fumble
Yes.
my way through transforming some Titan Tech Godzilla figures.
All right. You can follow TokUSA on X at TokuUSA_studios on X. On Instagram, I think it's the same name on Instagram. It's TokuUSA Studios on Instagram. You can follow me personally as Vega Lawless 1226 on all social media. It's also my gamer tag. I've
I'll have
had
to
stuff
add you
sent
on.
in some.
I have to add you on PlayStation.
Yes, it's also my gamer tag on PlayStation. So it's been my gamer tag since I was in 7th grade. You can follow that as Vega Lawless 1226, where I post things like my podcast, upcoming comic book news in general. 'Cause I love talking about comic books, all the Tokyo USA stuff there. And yeah, if you want to hear me talk about comic books 99% of the time and every other week or whenever our schedule demands it, you can follow that as Android's Amazing Podcast on all your podcasting places, Android's Amazing on X, and Android Amazing Podcast on Instagram.
Exciting. All right. And all of you know where to follow me. Just listen to the credits at this point, It's got all the stuff you need to know about there. Although what I will mention that's not in the credits and in the description of this episode is my author website, nathanjsmarchand.com, which I just did a couple of updates and made a couple of new posts this week talking about the live stream I just did with the Ryan the Omni Viewer Collins that got a lot of traction and a strange amount of controversy. It was kind of funny, but that's what happens when you rebut some hot takes from other YouTubers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so go make sure you go and check all of those out. And in the meantime, let's go give the MIFV Max members a little bit of fun with some comic talk.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast produced and hosted by Nate Marchand. Our executive producer is Damon Noyes. If you want to be heard on the show, we'd love to hear from you, so email us at monsterislandfilmvault@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. You can also follow Jimmy from NASA on Twitter and our many colorful characters using the links in the show notes, which are on our website, monsterislandfilmvault.com. Don't forget to join our official Facebook group and Discord server, The Markalite Lounge. Our podcast logo was designed by Rebecca Hudgens. Follow her on Twitter and Instagram at super_r_illustrations. Sound effects sourced from freesound.org and created by JP Gant. Our theme song is Wanderer on the Offensive, live edit by B33J, Sarax, Juan Madrono, and Nonsensical Lexus, which is a remix of Counterattack and The Opened Way by Kowatani from Shadow of the Colossus. Additional music includes Every Country Has a Monster, performed by Jonah Ray, and Chant My Name, a cover by Second Archive of the song by Masaki Endo. All film and audio clips belong to the respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended or implied. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and/or Podchaser to spread the word about the show. You can even support us by joining MIFV Max on Patreon. MIFV is a Moonlighting Ninjas media production and a proud member of Pod Nation. Sayonara!